America facing challenges.
Everyone is just looking for some type of connection.
Just raise your hand and say, hey, I'd like to help.
Coming together to find solutions.
We are going to do something about it.
Their stories are our stories.
Welcome to Eye on America.
Stream on the free CBS News app Monday.
Well, good morning and welcome to CBS News Mornings. It is 7 o'clock here in New York City. I'm Anne-Marie Green, and here's a look at the stories grabbing our attention right now. First, a bipartisan breakthrough on gun control after senators announced a potential deal backed by lawmakers on both sides of the aisle. So what's on the table, and will it actually pass? We'll have the latest from Capitol Hill. In just a few hours, the January 6th committee will present more evidence to the American people as investigators connect the dots from the deadly riot at the Capitol to the former president of the United States. We're going to have a preview of what to expect during today's hearings. And we'll have the latest on how a tip led to the arrest of more than 30 members of a white supremacist group in full riot gear, allegedly targeting a pride event in Idaho. Speaking of pride, parades and events across the U.S. and around the world mark the return of the iconic celebrations. We'll show you how thousands rallied in several countries to celebrate the comeback after 2 years of COVID. Plus, as stocks plummet across the boards and prices of everything from gas to groceries soar nationwide, some analysts are blaming the Fed.
The Federal Reserve did not react. It mischaracterized what inflation is, and it fell behind. And the lessons of history is once you fall behind, you lose the ability of the first best response.
We'll check in on financial markets ahead of the opening bell and tell you how it's now strictly members only for people trying to buy gas at one big name store. But before all of that, in just a few hours, the January 6th committee will hold the second in a series of hearings investigating the Capitol attack. CBS News New York reporter Nick Calloway is standing by with what we can expect. Nick, good morning.
Well, good morning, Anne-Marie. Members of that committee now say that there's enough evidence to indict former President Trump, and they're asking the Department of Justice to investigate. The January 6th Select Committee is ready for round 2 of hearings looking into the attack on the U.S. Capitol. Panel members say they found enough evidence for the Justice Department to weigh a potential unprecedented criminal indictment against former President Trump for trying to overturn the 2020 election results.
Ultimately, once the evidence is accumulated by the Justice Department, it needs to make a decision about whether it can prove to a jury beyond a reasonable doubt the president's guilt or anyone else's. But they need to be investigated if there's credible evidence, which I think there is.
Representative Adam Kinzinger, one of 2 Republicans on the 9-member panel, says the hearings should serve as a warning.
If we have people in power, whether it's in politics or law enforcement or the military, if we have any people that are unwilling to put their oath above any loyalty to a person, no law matters.
The hearings, which are expected to run through June, kicked off in prime time on Thursday.
January 6th was the culmination of an attempted coup.
A Capitol police officer who suffered a concussion in the deadly riot called it a war scene.
It was carnage. It was chaos.
President Trump's 2020 campaign manager, Bill Stepien, is among those scheduled to testify as the panel focuses today's hearing on Mr. Trump's efforts to spread unsubstantiated claims of election fraud. And the former president has denied all wrongdoing. Worth noting, no president or ex-president has ever been indicted. Anne-Marie?
Yeah, that is worth noting. Nick, you mentioned one person that we will hear from today. Who else is scheduled to testify, and what can we expect to hear from them?
Yeah, in addition to Bill Stepien, the witness list also includes B.J. Pack, the former top federal prosecutor in Atlanta, along with Chris Stirewalt, the former political editor for Fox News, Washington elections attorney Benjamin Ginsburg, and Al Schmidt, a former city commissioner in Philadelphia. This as the committee lays out its case that former President Trump may have committed a crime in trying to overturn the election. Anne-Marie?
All right, Nick, thank you very much. And you'll be able to stream today's hearing right here beginning at 10 a.m. Eastern. Senators have reached a bipartisan breakthrough on new gun legislation after weeks of intense negotiations. The proposal expands background checks for people under 21, provides incentives for states to pass red flag laws, which make it easier to temporarily take guns from people considered potentially violent. The measure also boosts mental health resources and provides funding for school safety resources. President Biden tweeted about the legislation saying, quote, "It does not do everything that I think is needed, but it reflects important steps in the right direction. With bipartisan support, there are no excuses for delay. Let's get this done." The deal comes one day after thousands of people took part in March for Our Lives rallies across the nation. Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer says that he will bring the bill to the Senate floor as soon as possible. 31 suspected members of a white supremacist group are set to be arraigned today. Authorities arrested the group Saturday near an Idaho Pride event after receiving a tip earlier in the day. Lilia Luciano has more on that.
These guys stopped a U-Haul full of dudes, masked up.
Police in Coeur d'Alene pulled over a U-Haul, finding 31 suspected white supremacists packed inside. They were zip-tied and arrested, accused of planning to riot.
They had shields, shin guards, and other riot gear with them, including at least one smoke grenade.
The police chief said the dozens arrested on misdemeanor conspiracy charges appear to be members of Patriot Front, a hate group according to the Southern Poverty Law Center. A concerned citizen called 911 to report them.
Based on the gear that the individuals had with them, the stuff they had in the possession and in the U-Haul with them, along with paperwork that was seized from them, that they came to riot downtown.
The group was stopped just blocks away from an LGBTQ pride parade.
The quote that we received through dispatch was, it, quote, looked like a little army that was loading up into the vehicle.
The suspects come from 12 states, among them Thomas Ryan Rousseau. He's one of the leaders of the Unite the Right rally in Charlottesville, Virginia that turned deadly in 2017.
You can see in the back of the U-Haul, looks like a flag and what looks to be a shield.
The arrests come just 5 days after the Department of Homeland Security issued a bulletin warning the country is under a heightened threat environment and that domestic violent extremism remains one of the biggest threats to the nation's safety. Lilia Luciano, CBS News, Los Angeles.
National gas prices held steady overnight after reaching another record high yesterday. A gallon of regular is $5.01. That's according to AAA. That is up 58 cents from a month ago. California is still the most expensive state for gas, averaging $6.44 a gallon, while Georgia is the cheapest, averaging $4.48 per gallon. Jury selection is expected to begin today in the murder trial of Kristen Smart. And prosecutors say Paul Flores, who was a student at the time, killed the 19-year-old woman while trying to rape her in his Cal Poly dorm room. His father, Ruben Flores, is charged with helping his son get rid of her body. Both have pleaded not guilty. Smart disappeared while walking back to her dorm room in 1996. Her body has never been found. A podcast last year renewed attention on the case and generated new information for police. COVID vaccines for children under 5 could be available as early as next week. And this comes after the FDA and Pfizer's reduced size doses appear to be safe and effective for young children. The FDA posted similar findings for Moderna's vaccine for kids under 6 last week. On Wednesday, a panel of outside experts will vote on whether the shots for kids are ready for distribution. And Justin Bieber is facing a new health struggle. We're going to tell you about the rare disorder he's experiencing and what it means for upcoming stops on his world tour. And Pride celebrations are back. We will take you to some of the largest festivities that took place over the weekend. But first, at 7:08 on the East Coast, time to check your local weather.
An original documentary from CBS reports.
It's gonna be big!
The metaverse, the virtual world that's become a cryptocurrency casino.
It's like buying property on Mars.
Do they get an actual picture of this? No, it's a digital copy. Why would they pay for that?
Making millionaires almost overnight.
We made more than $1 million in crypto last year.
I have no idea how much money I have made over the past year. That's like, wow.
Big rewards.
There's gold in them, there are hills, as they say.
Bigger risks.
The market's down, but it's going to bounce back. It's crypto.
Is it a gold rush or fool's gold?
It's our metaverse, our story. Peace out, y'all.
An original documentary from CBS Reports. Stream now.
I'm Nora O'Donnell in our nation's capital. We're here at the White House with the President of the United States.
Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
You've never done an interview like this before.
That's correct.
Tonight, a congressional investigation sparked by reporting from CBS News. What's your message to consumers?
They need help now. Tell him I feel it.
The CBS Evening News with Nora O'Donnell from Washington, D.C. on CBS and streaming on Paramount Plus.
We will witness yet another moment in history.
This week on 60 Minutes,
that's incredible.
The 60 Minutes.
60 Minutes, 60 Minutes.
Are you ready for some tough questions?
Let me ask you this.
You know how this sounds.
What's your response to that?
60 Minutes Sundays on CBS.
The threat of severe weather and dangerous tornadoes is expected to last.
Let's get the forecast from our partners at the Weather Channel.
Here we are in our virtual view.
Now 6 feet of water, imagine that. Cars that can act like battering rams.
These hyper-realistic simulations show you what the weather will look and feel like before it happens.
This is our virtual view, what it actually looks like. Those are some of the best graphics I've seen.
Spare no expense, Gail.
We experience the weather in a whole new way.
Go to the ends of the earth.
Right now.
We got something crazy. And reach for the stars.
Here we are.
Time.
Yes, it's my comeback.
Hey, this is pretty fun. But wait, there's more.
Experience thought-provoking.
Welcome to the idea of being a human being.
Innovative and truly original reporting.
Look through a telescope and go, wow.
Because there's always something new under the sun on CBS Sunday morning.
People from every corner of America facing challenges.
Everyone is just looking for some type of connection.
Just raise your hand and say, hey, I'd like to help.
Coming together to find solutions.
We are going to do something about it.
Their stories are our stories.
Welcome to Eye on America.
Stream now on the free CBS News app.
We have an inspiring story that started with a strange act of kindness.
Yeah. We found it.
You're kidding me!
We share stories that lift you up and brighten your day.
The Uplift. Stream on the free CBS News app.
Well, the time now is 4:11 in Seattle. That is Seattle's Tacoma International Airport. By the way, U.S. travelers are learning more about COVID requirement changes for flyers. We're going to have more on that in a minute. It's actually some pretty good news. The time now is 7:12 here in New York City. CBS News Mornings has a look at some of the stories that you may have missed while you were offline. Here we go. Travelers flying into the U.S. are not required to show proof of negative COVID tests anymore. The CDC policy change went into effect yesterday, and the agency plans to reevaluate in 90 days. CDC officials are still recommending travelers test before flying, though. Country music star Toby Keith says he's battling stomach cancer. The 60-year-old announced on social media that he was diagnosed last fall and has been receiving treatment for the last 6 months. His publicist told the Associated Press that some upcoming tour dates will be canceled. Meanwhile, Justin Bieber is canceling some upcoming shows after a rare medical diagnosis that he says has one side of his face temporarily paralyzed due to Ramsay-Hunt syndrome. Now, the singer says that he's taking time to rest and recover. This Pride Month, people all over the world are celebrating love. In Rome, thousands of people took to the streets on Saturday for a parade and dancing. Pride festivities haven't happened in the city for the past 2 years due to the pandemic. Washington, D.C. also held its first Pride parade since the start of the pandemic over the weekend. Vice President Kamala Harris stopped by to make remarks, criticizing states that have passed laws targeting transgender youth. Meanwhile, at an event in Los Angeles, people discussed what Pride means to them.
We are here to celebrate because this is life, this is love, this is who we are.
and should be happy.
It means that people like my friend who I love have freedom and express themselves and be happy and shine today.
It feels very validating to be in the right space with everyone just so welcoming and not being afraid to just be myself.
More Pride events are scheduled across the world for the rest of the month of June. New hires at some tech companies are watching their job offers go up in smoke. We're going to explain what's happening at certain companies and why some experts say that it could mean trouble is coming for other industries. And coming up later on Red and Blue, Republican Sarah Palin advanced in Alaska's special primary election. She's fighting for a key congressional seat in a fierce political battle. We'll speak with a reporter from the Anchorage Daily News about the race, and you can stream that conversation in our 6 p.m. Eastern hour. We'll be right back.
An original documentary from CBS reports.
Incredibly big!
The metaverse, the virtual world that's become a cryptocurrency casino.
It's like buying property on Mars.
Do they get an actual picture of this? No, it's a digital copy. Why would they pay for that?
Making millionaires almost overnight.
We made more than $1 million in crypto last year.
I have no idea how much money I have made over the past year. That's like, wow!
Big rewards.
There's gold in them, there hills, as they say.
Bigger risks.
The market's down, but it's gonna bounce back. It's crypto.
Is it a gold rush or fool's gold?
It's our metaverse, our story. Peace out, y'all.
An original documentary from CBS Reports. Stream now.
I'm Nora O'Donnell in our nation's capital. We're here at the White House with the President of the United States.
Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
We've never done an interview like this before.
That's correct.
Tonight, a congressional investigation sparked by reporting from CBS News. What's your message to consumers?
They need help now. Tell him I feel it.
The CBS Evening News with Nora O'Donnell from Washington, D.C. on CBS and streaming on Paramount Plus.
We will witness yet another moment in history.
This week on 60 Minutes.
That's incredible.
The 60 minutes.
60 minutes, 60 minutes.
Are you ready for some tough questions?
Let me ask you this.
You know how this sounds.
What's your response to that?
60 Minutes Sundays on CBS.
The threat of severe weather and dangerous tornadoes is expected to last.
Let's get the forecast from our partners at the Weather Channel.
Here we are in our virtual view.
Now 6 feet of water, imagine that. Cars that can act like battering rams.
These hyper-realistic simulations show you what the weather will look and feel like before it happens.
This is our virtual view, what it actually looks like. Those are some of the best graphics I've seen.
Spare no expense, Gail.
We experience the weather in a whole new way.
Go to the ends of the earth.
Right now.
We got something crazy.
And reach for the stars.
Here we are.
Time. Yes, it's my comeback.
Hey, this is pretty fun.
But wait, there's more.
Experience thought-provoking,
I'm open to the idea of being a human being.
innovative, and truly original reporting.
Look through a telescope and go, wow.
Because there's always something new under the sun on CBS Sunday morning.
People from every corner of America facing challenges.
Everyone is just looking for some type of connection.
Just raise your hand and say, hey, I'd like to help.
Coming together to find solutions.
We are going to do something about it.
Their stories are our stories.
Welcome to Eye on America.
Stream now on the free CBS News app.
We have an inspiring story that started with a strange act of kindness.
Yeah. We found it.
You're kidding me!
We share stories that lift you up and brighten your day.
The Uplift. Stream on the free CBS News app.
Crews in California are battling at least 3 new fires that broke out over the weekend, and massive flames are forcing evacuations in Arizona and New Mexico as dangerous heat impacts much of the region. So we're going to bring in meteorologist Jordan Steele from our partners at the Weather Channel. Jordan, what's happening with these high temperatures?
Well, good morning, Anne-Marie. Yeah, so from Southern California all the way to the eastern seaboard, we are tracking that heat, obviously not helping the wildfires out west, but look how it is on the move. Temperatures are going to be soaring, and our number for those that are going to experience temperatures above 90 grows all the way up to 186 million of us as we head into your midweek time frame. So the temperatures are going to get cranking. Obviously, it's full-on summer for us, and just looking at where we could see records from the Lone Star State yet again, places like Austin and San Antonio. Austin specifically has only had 4 days over the last 6 weeks below average. Every other day has been above average. And so that heat's going to be moving northward. As you can see, Louisville could break a record today at 95. Their record's 94. We could be looking at almost triple digits in parts of the Carolinas. And of course, those heat bubbles and those red dots indicate where we could break records going into tomorrow as well. Up in the Great Lakes, look at this. Grand Rapids, 92. Your record is 96. Madison could break it at 96 because your record is 95. Now we got to talk severe storms because that heat is going to be helping those storms thrive. And so just looking at where we have today, Wisconsin's going to be the big bullseye. And then all of this moves through Chicago and into the Ohio Valley as we head into tonight, then into the Virginias tomorrow, and then another round into the Ohio Valley as we head into your overnight hours into tomorrow morning. So it could be kind of a 1-2 punch for you guys. Make sure you stay weather aware as those storms will continue to track eastward. Remember, you can watch the Weather Channel on cable and now live on your favorite TV streaming devices. And Anne-Marie, the storms won't be providing much relief from the heat, unfortunately.
All right, Jordan, thank you very much. You can also get the latest on the weather in your area on the CBS News app. It gives you access to all of our CBS News national and local streams for free, anytime, anywhere. Stocks are pointing to a lower open following a dismal report on May's inflation numbers. And in Hollywood, dinosaurs rule the weekend box office. Elise Preston has more in today's Money Watch report.
Stocks took another tumble Friday on Wall Street, capping off its worst week since January. The Dow plunged 880 points. The Nasdaq gave up 414 points, about 3.5% of its value. And the S&P 500 fell 116. The Federal Reserve is set to hold a two-day meeting this week. The central bank's scheduled conference could result in a hike of the Fed funds rate by 0.5 point. The pending decision comes as May's inflation report shows the highest inflation rate in more than 40 years. Former McDonald's restaurants are now open in Russia. The new restaurants have some of the same menu items, but a different name and look than McDonald's restaurants that were closed months ago. The company shut down its stores in March, shortly after Russia invaded Ukraine, then sold all of its locations. A Russian businessman plans to open more than 200 locations by the end of the month. And Jurassic World Dominion roared at the box office, bringing in more than $143 million in domestic ticket sales. The science fiction thriller is expected to be the last of the iconic Jurassic World films. Experts believe the big showing at the box office signals a summer rebound for the film industry. That is your CBS Money Watch report for this Monday morning. I'm Elise Preston, CBS News, New York.
While advances in technology are being made every day, the industry as a whole seems to be struggling financially. CBS News' Dan Patterson explains just why some experts are concerned about what this could mean for a looming recession.
Imagine this. You just graduated from college and accepted a high-paying tech job. It's at a cool company, 6-figure salary, stock, and tons of time off. Nothing left to do but kick back and wait for that sweet tech cash to roll in, right? Wrong. Now, if you took an offer at crypto startup Coinbase or at Twitter, Redfin, or a handful of other tech companies, your hot new tech job might be going up in smoke. Last year, Coinbase, one of the world's largest cryptocurrency exchanges, had revenue of over $7.8 billion, according to the crypto tracking news site CoinDesk. It's currently worth about $15 billion. Its stock peaked at the height of the NFT mania last November at over $350 per share. The base salary for executives was close to $1 million, and a number of programming jobs started at, get this, over $300,000 per year. And then the crypto market crashed. Today, the stock is hovering at around $66, and the company is struggling. Bitcoin went from being worth about $70 per coin late last year to just $30 now, and the NFT market has cratered nearly 70%. Many of Coinbase's high-priced offers were rescinded with few details explaining why. On the workplace transparency app Blind, one Coinbase future hire claimed that the company promised in May not to rescind offers before abruptly changing course. It appears as though hundreds of people were impacted, in some cases after employees already left their previous job. Now, over at Twitter, the hiring freeze and rescinded offers can be explained in just 2 words: Elon Musk. According to the New York Times, The Verge, and other outlets, Twitter has frozen new hires. Axios reports that Twitter rescinded some 6-figure offers. Current Twitter staffers tell CBS News that they are burned out, overworked, and unsure of the future. Now, if you don't make a high-tech salary, and that's most of us, I'm guessing this sounds a bit out of touch. But Wall Street analysts tell me, with a recession looming, we should look at tech as an indicator of troubles that might roll through the rest of the economy. It could be a challenging few months for everyone. With Tech Watch, I'm Dan Patterson for CBS News.
We have a lot of news to tell you about in the next half hour. Senators have reached a bipartisan breakthrough in gun legislation. Congressional correspondent Nicole Killian is standing by on Capitol Hill to explain the major highlights and what's not included in the package. And some of the latest CBS News polling exposes how Americans view the January 6th attack. Elections and Surveys Executive Director Anthony Salvanto joins me after the break with all the latest details, while Scott McFarland will have a preview of today's House Committee hearing. Plus, Costco is cracking down on its gas in New Jersey as prices surge nationwide. Coming up later this hour, I'll speak with a transportation reporter about the move and what it means for people across the state. You're streaming CBS News Mornings.
An original documentary from CBS reports.
It's gonna be big!
The metaverse, the virtual world that's become a cryptocurrency casino.
It's like buying property on Mars.
Do they get an actual picture of this? No, it's a digital copy. Why would they pay for that?
Making millionaires almost overnight.
We made more than $1 million in crypto last year.
I have no idea how much money I have made over the past year. That's like, wow!
Big rewards.
There's gold in them, there hills, as they say.
Bigger risks.
The market's down, but it's gonna bounce back. It's crypto.
Is it a gold rush or fool's gold?
It's our metaverse, our story. Peace out, y'all.
An original documentary from CBS Reports. Stream now.
I'm Nora O'Donnell in our nation's capital. We're here at the White House with the President of the United States.
Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
We've never done an interview like this before.
That's correct.
Tonight, a congressional investigation sparked by reporting from CBS News. What's your message to consumers?
They need help now. Tell him I feel it.
The CBS Evening News with Nora O'Donnell from Washington, D.C. on CBS and streaming on Paramount Plus.
We will witness yet another moment in history.
This week on 60 Minutes.
That's incredible.
The 60 Minutes.
60 minutes, 60 minutes.
Are you ready for some tough questions?
Let me ask you this.
You know how this sounds.
What's your response to that?
60 Minutes Sundays on CBS.
The threat of severe weather and dangerous tornadoes is expected to last.
Let's get the forecast from our partners at the Weather Channel. Here we are in our virtual view.
Now 6 feet of water, imagine that. Cars that can act like battering rams.
These hyper-realistic simulations show you what the weather will look and feel like before it happens.
This is our virtual view, what it actually looks like. Those are some of the best graphics I've seen.
Spare no expense, Gail.
We experience the weather in a whole new way.
Go to the ends of the earth
Right now. We got something crazy.
and reach for the stars.
Here we are. Time.
Yes, it's my comeback.
Hey, this is pretty fun.
But wait, there's more.
Experience thought-provoking,
Welcome to the idea of being a human being.
innovative,
Da-da-da-da.
and truly original reporting.
Look through a telescope and go, wow.
Because there's always something new under the sun on CBS Sunday morning.
People from every corner of America facing challenges.
Everyone is just looking for some type of connection.
Just raise your hand and say, hey, I'd like to help.
Coming together to find solutions.
We are going to do something about it.
Their stories are our stories.
Welcome to Eye on America.
Stream now on the free CBS News app.
We have an inspiring story that started with a strange act of kindness.
We found it.
You're kidding me!
We share stories that lift you up and brighten your day.
The Uplift. Stream on the free CBS News app.
Welcome back to CBS News Mornings. The time now is 7:28. Let's get you caught up on some of the news that you may have missed. In just a few hours, the January 6th committee will hold the second in a series of hearings investigating the Capitol attack. Republican witnesses are expected to testify as members try to prove former President Trump fueled the deadly riot. 31 suspected members of a white supremacist group are expected to be arraigned today. Authorities arrested the group Saturday near an Idaho Pride event after acting on a tip they received earlier in the day. And in Ukraine, the battle raging right now in the Donbass region could determine the future of the war. If Russia continues its advance, Ukraine could lose the bulk of its military forces, and that could open a window for Moscow to seize more territory. So, after weeks of intense negotiations, senators say that they reached a bipartisan agreement on gun legislation. Lawmakers made the announcement over the weekend amid massive protests nationwide. Activists and survivors of gun violence demanded some kind of action from Congress. Nicole Killian is following all of this for us from Capitol Hill. Nicole.
Hey, good morning to you, Anne Marie. And these could be the first major federal gun restrictions in nearly 30 years. President Biden has indicated he would sign the package if it comes to his desk, but no one is taking a victory lap just yet. The legislation hasn't even been written, so this is still very much in the early stages.
I will put this bill on the floor ASAP, as soon as possible.
Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer pledged action after a bipartisan group of senators announced a framework on gun safety after weeks of negotiations in the wake of the Buffalo and Uvalde massacres.
To deliver literally nothing again was just too hard a prospect to contemplate.
The agreement in principle would include financial support for states to create or administer red flag laws to temporarily remove guns from individuals deemed to be a threat, expanded investments in mental health, school safety, and enhanced background checks for gun buyers.
It is far from everything I wanted, but it will save lives.
At least 10 Republicans have already signed on to the proposals, increasing their prospects for passage. Minority Leader Mitch McConnell said he hopes negotiations continue to yield a bipartisan product that makes significant headway. But the National Rifle Association warned the NRA will continue to oppose any effort to insert gun control policies that deprive law-abiding citizens of their fundamental right to protect themselves. Gun safety advocates rallying in the nation's capital and cities around the country say they'll take what they can get.
If we can stop one Parkland from happening because of this, that's good.
Well, Congress is only in session for a few more weeks before its July 4th recess, although many lawmakers I've spoken to, Anne Marie, tell me they really hope they can get this done before the break.
Yeah, that would be nice. So with those 10 Republicans on board, though, the final proposal could potentially garner the 60 votes that's needed to overcome a filibuster. But, you know, Republicans have traditionally said no to pretty much any kind of legislation around gun reform. And so I got to wonder whether or not these 10 Republicans are assuming a tremendous amount of political risk going forward with this.
Well, I think it remains to be seen. I mean, I think there's risk the other way, right? I mean, you heard Senator Chris Coons saying, you know, not doing anything. He didn't really see that as being an option given the gravity of some of these mass shootings that we have seen as of late. And so, you know, they didn't want to come up empty yet again. But that being said, as I mentioned, you know, this is, again, very much in the early stages. So while we have this broad framework, certainly things could potentially change. You know, in terms of political risk, I doubt that any of these 10 lawmakers will perhaps face, for instance, the same fate of a Congressman Jacobs, you know, from New York, who, of course, decided not to run for re-election after he announced support for an assault weapons ban. So, I mean, these are very modest changes, modest proposals. Some of them have even been around for several years now. A lot of these lawmakers, you know, have pretty solid ratings with the NRA. So whether or not that changes, I think, depends ultimately on, you know, what finally comes out of this package.
So the president said there's a lot of what he likes in there, but some of what he wanted is not included. What's not included?
So there are a couple of things. I mean, look, you just saw last week the House passed pretty sweeping package of reforms. And so, for instance, one of the things they passed that's not included in this Senate compromise is, raising the purchasing age for semi-automatic weapons from 18 to 21. As you know, President Biden has called for an assault weapons ban, bringing back the assault weapons ban that we saw back in 1994. And then, of course, things like universal background checks. There's a bill sitting in the Senate now that the House passed over that right now appears to be stalled. So again, many Democrats have acknowledged in this agreement they're not going to get everything that they want out of this, and Republicans as well, but they acknowledge something in this case is better than nothing.
And included in the proposal is a provision that would extend a prohibition on domestic abusers having guns. What more can you tell us about what they're calling the boyfriend loophole?
Yeah, so this would close that so-called boyfriend loophole. This was actually a provision that got struck from another package, the Violence Against Women Act, which was re-upped a couple of months ago. And that was one of the sticking points in terms of getting that particular piece of legislation reauthorized. It was held up actually for a period of years over this back and forth over the boyfriend loophole. And so now we see it as a part of this package, which in essence, again, would make those who are involved in an intimate or romantic relationship with someone ineligible to get a gun if, for instance, they've been convicted of domestic violence abuses. And that is in addition to, for instance, spouses, live-in partners, and the like. So again, as these negotiations continue and as this legislation is drafted, it will be interesting to see if this particular provision actually does stay in, again, given kind of the back and forth when lawmakers tried to include it in previous legislation. So we'll see. Anne Marie.
All right, Nicole, thank you.
You bet.
So we are less than 3 hours away from the January 6th committee's second televised public hearing. Today, the panel will focus on how former President Donald Trump spread baseless claims of election fraud, something Congressman Adam Kinzinger, one of the two Republicans on the committee, spoke about yesterday on Face the Nation.
He was told repeatedly by people that he trusted, that he respected, people like, folks around him, that the election wasn't stolen, that there is no corroborating proof of any kind of a stealing or any kind of a corruption that would change the outcome.
All right, so our congressional correspondent Scott McFarland's here on Capitol Hill, to give us an idea of what to expect today, Scott. The committee says that for today's hearing, it's going to try to show that former President Trump was able to convince Americans that the 2020 presidential election was stolen. So what more do we know about just how this and the other focus points are going to be sort of laid out today?
Anne-Marie, they're going to say former President Trump convinced millions of Americans about these false claims about the election. These false claims were the first in 7 steps, the committee says, that led from November 3rd to January 6th. It was the spark that kind of fanned the flames or triggered the flames that began this whole incomparable set of events that led to the horrific attack on January 6th. What they'll show today is not only were the claims false, but that the inner circle to Donald Trump knew it, warned him, said it unambiguously that this is not true, that this is bogus. We'll likely hear more clips today, Anne-Marie, from some of those depositions the committee took with members of the Trump inner circle. And we're going to hear from an all-Republican panel of witnesses, local officials who said their state's votes were legitimate, but that they were forced out or left their jobs under pressure because of the false claims. A Fox News analyst who lost his job after being first to declare Joe Biden would win Arizona. A Republican legal expert, elections lawyer, who will talk about how these challenges are supposed to happen. And this all begins at 10 a.m. in a 2 to 3 hour hearing that will show more of the hand this January 6th committee is holding.
We're also going to hear today from the Capitol Police Officer Eugene Goodman. We've heard from him before. He helped to lure a mob away from the Senate on January 6th. What can you tell us about what we're going to hear from him, and what do we know about this case of also an accused, I'm not reading this properly, but he's going to testify on the bench trial of an accused rioter who carried a Confederate flag into the Capitol that day. I remember seeing that image. Can you tell us a little bit more about that?
Yeah, Anne-Marie, it's happening simultaneously. The January 6th committee hearing is happening, and this trial begins at the same moment just down the road at the federal courthouse here in Washington, D.C. Let me tell you about the defendant first. His name is Kevin Seyfried. He's from Delaware. He's going on trial with his son, Hunter Seyfried. They're co-defendants. Kevin Seyfried, the Justice Department says, is the man who brought that Confederate flag and paraded it prominently through the Capitol complex January 6th. It's a bench trial. That's important. That means the judge will serve to officiate the trial, and also he'll be the one to render the verdict. There is no jury. Kevin Seyfried has pleaded not guilty and sought this trial, but it'll be Capitol Police Officer Eugene Goodman among the witnesses. Goodman was that hero officer who helped lure the mob away from the Senate doors January 6th. Watch this case, Anne-Marie. The judge is a 2017 appointee to the federal court. He's handled 2 other bench trials involving January 6 defendants, and there was a partial or full acquittal from the judge in both of those cases. Let's see what happens today. We could have a verdict by the end of the day in the case of Kevin Seyfried.
So speaking of pursuing criminal charges, I want to bounce back to the January 6th committee. We know that the committee members have said that they have all kinds of evidence if the Justice Department wanted to act in terms of pursuing criminal activity. What are the options? What sort of actions could the Justice Department take?
Well, the committee can, at the end of its work, make a formal referral to the Justice Department to file criminal charges against any number of players in the conspiracy they're alleging. But let's be clear, before these hearings even began, Anne-Marie, the January 6th Select Committee, in its court filings, as it tried to get emails or documents from some of the witnesses or cooperation from some of the witnesses, said in so many words, they believe and they have evidence that Donald Trump committed conspiracy, engaged in a conspiracy to defraud the United States and obstruct the official proceedings January 6th. They've already said that. It gives you an indication of the trajectory of these hearings before they wrap this month. They can make a formal referral for prosecution for anyone they deem necessary, but it'll be the Justice Department's decision whether to plow ahead with that. And the Justice Department and the Congressional Committee must stay in separate lanes. They cannot work together.
Scott, thank you very much. So today's hearing comes after at least 20 million people watched the first one Thursday. That's according to Nielsen. But there are growing questions over just how exactly these hearings are impacting Americans' views of the January 6th attack. So here for more analysis is our Elections and Surveys Director, Anthony Salvanto. Very glad you are here. So, it was clear that they chose to start these series of hearings with a primetime special because they wanted as many Americans to watch as possible. And the focus has really been on how much our democracy was in jeopardy, how much the election was being threatened. But I wonder if that's how Americans view this. What's their take on that?
Yeah, and it's so important to set the context for all of this, right? Because they are holding the hearings in a very, widely viewed public forum. One of the things I wanted to show you to set some of that context is that in our most recent poll, you had a majority of people saying that finding out what happened is at least somewhat important. In fact, the plurality saying that it was very important. So that's kind of a start, and that's maybe why people have this interest. But to your point about democracy, which I happen to think is so important, one of the things we learned when we polled about this on the 1-year anniversary, people looking back on January 6th, they were worried that what they saw back on Jan 6, 21 was a sign of increasing political violence in the country. And so you saw, setting the stage here again, you saw how people saw the longer-term ramifications of what they saw. And that stayed with people. In fact, it was right afterwards that people said they felt democracy itself was threatened. Now, the second beat on this, though, Anne-Marie, is for various reasons, right? For a lot of people, for a lot of Democrats, it was because of what they saw. For a lot of Republicans, it was because they were skeptical about the 2020 election. So, but everything you're seeing here goes back to that larger idea that democracy works when people think it works, when people think others and themselves are all following the same set of rules. And that's been undermined a little bit, it seems.
So speaking of perception, most Americans in both parties have condemned the events on January 6th, but their descriptions of what happened differ depending on the party I get. What exactly do Americans believe happened on that day?
Yeah, you're exactly right. Right afterwards, and then even when we followed up over the course of the years, people condemned the actions of what happened in those. They forced their way into the Capitol. You see that big disapproval number, 83%. You can't overlook the 1 in 5 who approve. That's a group. It's obviously a minority group, but clearly one worth paying some attention to, because as you see, it doesn't take a lot of people to have that kind of disruption. So that's a really key point. But then I do want to scroll over here and show you this to answer your question about two things, the differences in how they describe. First of all, we saw Republicans a little bit towards the somewhat disapprove category as opposed to the strongly disapprove category. And those are numbers that sort of go to another point, which is that description of what happened. When you ask people to put words around their feelings, their views of it, and this is something we did at the 1-year anniversary of January 6th, you look at these differences, Democrats calling it an insurrection, Democrats saying it was an attempt to overthrow the government, but look at the sizable numbers of Republicans who called it patriotism, who called it defending freedom. And that comes back to this idea again of the, discredited, as you use the term, the unproven allegations the former president had about the 2020 election. So it's a difference between condemning the actions, but at the same time feeling like there was something wrong with 2020 among Republicans that underpins a lot of that.
That is so interesting. It's just like living in two Americas. I swear. So as we move forward, then, how do we watch the politics of all of this as we move forward into our next election now?
Yeah, great question. And I think the first thing you want to look at, let's stay with the Republicans for a moment. What should the party do about all this, right? I mean, Republican senators and congressmen are going to get questions following these hearings, right? What do you think? What did you learn? So we want to see the plurality of Republicans say that the party shouldn't take a position. But there is a sizable number who say the party should be criticizing those who entered the Capitol. And so this is part of that break. And we're going to see this as we go through the primaries. We've talked about it. What should a candidate do? Do they want somebody who's loyal to Donald Trump? Do they want somebody who's talking about the fact that, that they think there was, those kinds of things going on in 2020? So look at this. In 2022, do you want a candidate in your party who thinks 2020 should have been? And look at these numbers among Republicans. You get 40% who want their candidates to be saying that the 2020 election should have been overturned. Again, that's not everybody. That's not all Republicans. But it's this part of the base, and they vote a lot in primaries, and that helps explain the dynamics you're seeing as Republicans select candidates for Senate and Congress now as we go through these primaries. That's part of the base, and they vote in primaries.
Man, that is such fascinating stuff, Anthony. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
So the time now is 7:46, and this is a live look at New York's Times Square, home of CBS Mornings. Tony DeCopel is standing by with a preview of the show. Tony, good morning.
Hey, good morning, Anne Marie. Ahead on CBS Mornings, the Senate has announced a bipartisan deal on gun safety, but will it be enough? We've got the details for you. Plus, an exciting lineup of guests, all of them in studio today. Actor Bryan Cranston will be here. He's got a new movie based on a real-life lottery winner. It's delightful. Tisha Campbell is also here for the reunion of the hit show Martin. Awesome show. And a certain MSNBC anchor, there she is. I recognize the guy on her arm as well. That's me. That's my wife, Katie Tur. She's going to be here. She's got a new book. It's a memoir. And it turns out that when your wife writes an entire book about her childhood stories and memories, even the husband can learn a thing or two. I love it. Gail's got lots of questions for her. We'll see how this goes. Bring your wife to work day. We'll see you all at 8.
All right. See you at 8 o'clock, Tony. Costco is cracking down on its cheaper gas in New Jersey. We'll explain why the store will start requiring memberships in order to fill up at its pumps. That's coming up next. We'll be right back.
An original documentary from CBS reports.
It's gonna be big!
The metaverse, the virtual world that's become a cryptocurrency casino.
It's like buying property on Mars.
Do they get an actual picture of this? No, it's a digital copy. Why would they pay for that?
Making millionaires almost overnight.
We made more than $1 million in crypto last year.
I have no idea how much money I have made over the past year. That's like,
wow. Big rewards.
There's gold in them, their hills, as they say.
Bigger risks.
The market's down, but it's going to bounce back. It's crypto.
Is it a gold rush or fool's gold?
It's our metaverse, our story. Peace out, y'all.
An original documentary from CBS Reports. Stream now.
I'm Nora O'Donnell in our nation's capital. We're here at the White House with the President of the United States.
Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
We've never done an interview like this before.
That's correct.
Tonight, a congressional investigation sparked by reporting from CBS News. What's your message to consumers?
They need help now. Tell him I feel it.
The CBS Evening News with Nora O'Donnell from Washington, D.C. on CBS and streaming on Paramount Plus.
We will witness yet another moment in history.
This week on 60 Minutes,
That's incredible.
The 60 Minutes.
60 Minutes, 60 Minutes.
Are you ready for some tough questions?
Let me ask you this.
You know how this sounds.
What's your response to that?
60 Minutes Sundays on CBS.
The threat of severe weather and dangerous tornadoes is expected to last.
Let's get the forecast from our partners at the Weather Channel.
Here we are in our virtual view.
Now 6 feet of water, imagine that. Cars that can act like battering rams.
These hyper-realistic simulations show you what the weather will look and feel like before it happens.
This is our virtual view, what it actually looks like.
Those are some of the best graphics I've seen.
Spare no expense, Gail.
We experience the weather in a whole new way.
Go to the ends of the earth.
Right now.
We got something crazy.
And reach for the stars.
Here we are.
Time.
Yes, it's my comeback.
hey, this is pretty fun.
But wait, there's more.
Experience thought-provoking,
Welcome to the idea of being a human being.
innovative, and truly original reporting.
Look through a telescope and go, wow.
Because there's always something new under the sun on CBS Sunday morning.
People from every corner of America facing challenges.
Everyone is just looking for some type of connection.
Just raise your hand and say, hey, I'd like to help.
Coming together to find solutions.
We are going to do something about it.
Their stories are our stories.
Welcome to Eye on America.
Stream now on the free CBS News app.
We have an inspiring story that started with a strange act of kindness.
Yes. We found it.
You're kidding me!
We share stories that lift you up and brighten your day.
The Uplift. Stream on the free CBS News app.
U.S. stock futures fall more than 1% after Wall Street's worst week since January. And this comes following the Department of Labor report that U.S. inflation rose 8.6% in the month of May. Now, earlier this week, the Federal Reserve is expected to meet to discuss GDP growth, inflation, and future rate hikes. A truckers' strike in South Korea is entering its second week. They're pushing for higher pay. The strike is deepening the uncertainty over global supply chains already disrupted by China's COVID-19 policy and Russia's invasion of Ukraine. Netflix has officially greenlit Squid Game for a second season. The Korean series follows a group of cash-strapped citizens thrust into a high-stakes competition of deadly children's games run by a mysterious organization. The show's executive producers confirmed the return of everyone's favorite characters and the deadly new doll. Well, gas prices in New Jersey have topped $5 for the first time ever. It's a 12% surge from last month when it was nearly $4.50 a gallon. Now, according to AAA, New Jersey residents now are paying an average of $3 a gallon. We're paying an average of $3 a gallon this time last year. A lot of numbers in that script. For more on this, we want to bring in Larry Higgs. He is a commuting and transportation journalist for the NJ Advanced Media. His reporting can be found in the Star Ledger and NJ.com. Hey, thanks for joining us this morning.
Thanks for having me.
So you recently wrote about Costco, that Costco will no longer allow non-members to buy discounted gas in New Jersey. People should know Costco, the big box store, also has gas stations at some of their locations. Can you talk about what's driving this decision? Because usually the Costco gas is actually a pretty good price.
Well, there's an interesting thing. I've tried to find out from the state, first of all, if they have any kind of a law that would bar this. When Costco was much smaller in May 2004, they tried to do this and the state apparently stepped in and cited motor fuel laws, and they went back to allowing all takers to come in. Excuse me. Costco has not talked to us. However, petroleum experts that I talked to said that there may be a number of reasons why they're doing this. We're entering the peak driving season in the summer when schools let out, people hit the road to go on vacation, they go to the shore, and that's going to drive the demand for gas up. We are at the lowest supplies historically that we've seen in a long time for both gas and diesel. And the concern for gas stations like Costco is, as one expert called it, staying wet, making sure that they have enough gas supplies for all their pumps so they can supply all comers. So naturally, they want to take care of their members first. So that's one reason. The other reason, of course, as your pictures show, people are lining up. And if they're lining up into the highway in the street, that doesn't exactly make for good relations with the neighbors. So that might also be a hedge to avoid a problem with drivers lining up.
So I live in Philadelphia, and if you ever sort of travel over to South Jersey for anything, you usually make sure you fill up because the gas price is usually significantly cheaper in Jersey. That difference now has become smaller and smaller and smaller. And so I'm wondering about what the impact might be in New Jersey as the gas prices rise. I mean, do people have the option to drive less? Are they going to take Jersey Transit? What do we think the impact will be?
Well, and this is one of the problems. When we talk to the experts, they're kind of surprised because they're not seeing demand go away. They AAA and what have you, they've suggested, combining trips, that kind of thing. But when I asked the big question about are people going to possibly reconsider their vacation, the answer is no, absolutely not. And part of that is because of COVID. People have been cooped up for 2 years. This is the year where really we're seeing the pandemic start to wane and people want to go on vacation, myself included.
Yeah.
And so what might happen is they might cut back on something else. They're going to go to the shore. If they have a beach house, they might decide, maybe we're not going to eat out as much. Maybe when we go to the beach, we're going to pack a sandwich instead of eat on the boardwalk. And that's going to have a ripple effect for those businesses because this is their Christmas rush. This is where they make the majority of their revenue. So they're dependent on weather, but they're also dependent on people showing up and opening their wallet. And the high price of gas may put a dent in that.
Yeah, that totally makes a lot of sense. Larry, thank you very much.
A pleasure. Thanks.
The time is 7:55. Here's a look at what's coming up today. In just a few hours, the January 6th committee will hold its latest public hearing. One of former President Trump's campaign managers is expected to testify, along with a former Fox News political editor. You can stream the entire hearing right here at 10 a.m. Eastern. Also at 10 a.m. Eastern, the Supreme Court is expected to issue opinions. It's unclear what decisions will be released, but we're keeping a close eye on several cases, including one that could, of course, overturn Roe v. Wade. So stay with us for all the latest developments on that. Plus, Secretary of State Antony Blinken will deliver remarks alongside South Korean Foreign Minister Park Jun this afternoon. They're expected to address rising tensions with North Korea, the global economy, and other major issues. And before all of that, we're going to speak with former Defense Secretary Mark Esper about the January 6th hearing and the former president's efforts to spread the so-called big lie about the 2020 election. You can stream that at 9:30 Eastern. If you're heading out the door, take us with you. You can access all of our CBS News national and local streams for free anytime, anywhere on the CBS News app. CBS Mornings is next. I'll see you in an hour.
An original documentary from CBS reports.
It's gonna be big!
The metaverse, the virtual world that's become a cryptocurrency casino.
It's like buying property on Mars.
Do they get an actual picture of this? No, it's a digital copy. Why would they pay for that?
Making millionaires almost overnight.
We made more than $1 million in crypto last year.
I have no idea how much money I have made over the past year. That's like, wow!
Big rewards.
There's gold in them, they're hills, as they say.
Bigger risks.
The market's down, but it's gonna bounce back. It's crypto.
Is it a gold rush or fool's gold?
It's our metaverse, our story. Peace out, y'all.
An original documentary from CBS Reports. Stream now.
I'm Nora O'Donnell in our nation's capital. We're here at the White House with the President of the United States.
Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
We've never done an interview like this before.
That's correct.
Tonight, a congressional investigation sparked by reporting from CBS News. What's your message to consumers?
They need help now. Tell him I feel it.
The CBS Evening News with Nora O'Donnell from Washington, D.C. on CBS and streaming on Paramount Plus.
We will witness yet another moment in history.
This week on 60 Minutes, that's incredible.
The 60 Minutes.
60 Minutes, 60 Minutes.
Are you ready for some tough questions?
Let me ask you this.
You know how this sounds.
What's your response to that?
60 Minutes Sundays on CBS.
The threat of severe weather and dangerous tornadoes is expected to last.
Let's get the forecast from our partners at the Weather Channel.
Here we are in our virtual view.
Now 6 feet of water, imagine that. Cars that can act like battering rams.
These hyper-realistic simulations show you what the weather will look and feel like before it happens.
This is our virtual view, what it actually looks like.
Those are some of the best graphics I've seen.
Spare no expense, Gail.
We experience the weather in a whole new way.
Go to the ends of the earth.
Right now.
We got something crazy. And reach for the stars.
Here we are.
Time
Yes, it's